Welcome to the program. Well, Abu Dhabi Finance Week is getting underway today, and it is shaping up to be one of the biggest global gatherings of finance and business leaders. Organisers say $63 trillion in wealth is being represented on the ground this week, and the who's who of business are coming to town. CNBC is, of course, hosting its first ever event in the Middle East. It's called the New Energy Finance Forum at Abu Dhabi Finance Week. And our Steve Sedgwick is here with me in Abu Dhabi. We're going to be speaking to some of the leading voices engineering the biggest reallocation of capital in a generation, Steve, as countries shift to a world powered by and for artificial intelligence. Steve, good morning.
Yeah, Dan, it's lovely to be here. Always fantastic to be back in the UAE. And my goodness me, I know we've got a long conversation coming up with Ray Dalio, which I'm genuinely very excited about. Before that, of course, we're also going to go into a little bit more detail about why I'm here joining you and your magnificent team as well. But look, the fact of the matter is this region has never been short of capital for new projects, never been short of capital for hydrocarbon projects as well and for innovative projects as well. But I think the scale of the challenge is quite extraordinary. And let's be honest about it, AI is creating all kinds of new energy demands, Dan, which is what you and I are going to talk a lot about over the next day or so.
Indeed, Steve. And look, for almost a decade now, I've been covering the rise of Abu Dhabi as a global financial powerhouse. And I think, look, really what's happening here is pretty unmistakable. The city has quietly and now very visibly become the capital of capital in the Middle East. It's also playing a key role in how global markets, global energy and global innovation all get financed as well. And of course, as we've been covering over the last couple of years, the rise of Abu Dhabi now means that it is home to more than $1.7 trillion in sovereign wealth. That is 1.7 with a T, right? Leaders here have been deploying capital into industries that are ultimately going to shape the coming decades as well. The regulatory environment is modern and it's increasingly geared towards international investors. And then alongside this as well, there's massive investment flowing into infrastructure for next generation technologies. It's a major competitive edge as the UAE pushes to diversify its economic base beyond hydrocarbons. So that's why we're talking about the new energy economy today, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, the UAE's commitment to net zero by 2050 means clean energy capacity, wait for it, is set to triple by the end of this decade. A lot of developed nations would love those kind of figures. Abu Dhabi plans to add around 5 gigawatts of renewable power. Now, at the same time, the UAE is deploying large-scale AI infrastructure, which is setting, quite frankly, a benchmark for what an energy-rich economy can look like in the digital age. These shifts unlocking entirely new channels for private capital, deepening local markets and giving global investors another reason to have a very serious look at Abu Dhabi and the UAE. Dan, we have this amazing event this morning, and after you've anchored the show from our headquarters here in Abu Dhabi as well, you're coming down to join me, and we're going to speak to some really important people about the challenge and the opportunity. Because let's be brutally honest about it, as I was just saying on Inside India, the problem isn't the fact that we're not going to have enough large language models. In fact, there are a lot of questions about how much money needs to be deployed into those large language models, and we had the DeepSeek moment earlier this year, but everyone seems to have forgotten about that, and the capital is flying into these hyperscalers. Now, that may well find very profitable homes with a great return on capital, return on investment, but there are real concerns about further down the line. And I don't mean the chip production. I think NVIDIA and the other big chip players globally, they're going to have that covered. So we've got the large language models covered. We've got the chip production covered. But what about the key bottleneck? And the key bottleneck is, without doubt, from what everyone has been saying to me and to you, is going to be energy. And a lot of that energy has to be renewable, has to be clean energy, Dan. It can't just come from traditional sources.
You're exactly right, Steve. And later today, I'll be joined on stage by the UAE Energy Minister, His Excellency Suhail Al-Mazroui. I'll be putting all of these questions to him, in fact, as the UAE positions to not just be a leader in artificial intelligence, but also continue to be a leader in traditional fuels as well. Powering the AI future is going to mean the energy addition era, the likes of Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber say, at least. So what that means for the energy transition is also a big question at this point. You know, you and I have spent many years talking about the pathway towards net zero and the future of the energy transition. Well, I think the narrative has firmly shifted now as well, particularly as we see all of this capacity being installed around AI, data centers, and the rising demand for artificial intelligence technologies that will ultimately drive energy demands moving forward as well. So we have a lot to talk about over the next couple of days, and indeed at our event later today as well. And I think one of the other things we're also going to be looking at is the future of finance itself. We're also going to be joined by Jeremy Allaire from Circle. We're going to put some questions to him about what the future of stablecoins are going to look like in the region, particularly when it comes to energy trading. And we'll also talk about what's been happening with the state of alternatives in this market as well. Certainly a hot talking point too.
Yeah, I'll just have one point as well about the broader energy mix. And it doesn't matter if it's OPEC, the IEA, the EIA. A lot of the estimates for energy demand growth in the 21st century centered on this region, on the Middle East. It's centered on Asia, on China, on the growth industrially, transport and population growth coming out from those regions. What I think everybody clearly didn't take enough seriously about, or think seriously enough about, was actually, well, hang on a second, what if demand growth isn't stagnating in the West, isn't stagnating in the United States, isn't stagnating in Europe as well, and actually we're going to see demand growth coming from those regions? Then we are not necessarily prepared for that, Dan, and that is exactly what is beginning to happen with the adoption of AI. The kind of numbers, and we'll bring it throughout the morning, the kind of numbers we're talking about for demand growth on the back of data centers is quite extraordinary, and I don't know if the West is quite ready for it just yet.